the teeth, the mouth, the tip of the tongue, the teeth, the mouth, the tip of the tongue, the teeth, the mouth. Hey everyone, it's Elizabeth from Primary Pickles, and I'm here today to talk to you about the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. I've mentioned this a few times in my videos. I work at a Leader in Me school, which means that we kind of have the license to teach the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, and we have access to all the resources. But I want to let you know that you don't have to be a Leader in Me school in order to use the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. So the adult book is called The Leader in Me, and that's kind of how to teach it to the kids. And then the kids version is the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. There's lots of little woodland creatures and puppets for you to use, especially for the primary grades. But today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through what the 7 habits are and just kind of briefly describe them and how they work. So there are 7 habits of highly effective people, and this is from the Franklin Covey Company. And they kind of build on each other. So you have to kind of master habit 1 in order to move on to habit 2 and kind of like that. So habit 1 is be proactive. So what does being proactive mean? Now when we heard that as adults at our training, we kind of thought of it as like, oh, I'm thinking ahead, I'm doing this beforehand so I don't have to worry about it afterwards. But that's not really what it means in Leader in Me world. It's more about self-control. So being proactive, I'm worrying about myself. I'm not worrying about other people. I'm not letting other people's moods or issues affect me. I'm taking care of my needs. It's kind of like, and I've used this metaphor before, you have to take care of yourself on an airplane if the oxygen mask comes down. You have to put your thing on first before you can do anything else with anyone. And so that's a really tough habit for children to learn, because especially the primary kids or preschool kids, they are trying to have control over their environments. They have so little control over everything that they try to control a lot of things in their lives. So what we talk about is just how to do it in a way that makes you worry about you. Think about the things that you can control. Can you control how your friend acts? No. Can you control what your friend says? No. But you can control how it makes you feel. So and it's called carrying your own weather. So, maybe one of my friends comes in, and as a teacher, maybe one of my students comes in and they're really upset. They are just in a terrible mood. And they come up to me and I say, hi, how are you? Good morning. And they go, I don't want to talk to you right now. Blah, blah, blah. I can take that 2 ways. I can take that really personally and say, oh, wow, that person really must hate me. Like, I am a terrible teacher and now I'm going to have a bad day. Or I can go over and try and talk to them and say, hey, like, what's going on? And they might say, well, my friend said that he didn't like me and I can't be in his club anymore. Like, okay, well, it sounds like maybe that's not a friend you want to be friends with. Maybe you just give him some space. And really, like, when it comes down to it, it's just about being in control and being in charge of yourself. And that's a great habit for kids to learn, and it's a great habit for adults to learn. Sorry if my camera cut off there. Okay, so habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. So begin with the end in mind is just kind of like thinking about your goals and thinking about what you want to achieve that day. And as adults, we would probably say it's kind of like working backwards. Like you think about what you want and then you work backwards to see what you need to get done. And the example that we use with the kids is think about when you're going on vacation. Well, if you know that you're going somewhere hot, then you need to think about what you're going to pack. So I know that the end is me getting to my vacation, but I need to think about what I have to pack first. So I need to pack a swimsuit, I need to pack a towel, sunscreen. You have to be prepared. You don't want to have to pack at the last minute because you might forget something. And it kind of goes along with what habit 3 is, which is put first things first. Put first things first. Put first things first. So we call these our big rocks, and if you watch my last few videos or you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen my big rocks poster and all that. So let me know if you want one of those. I'm happy to send that to you for free. That's not an issue with me. But put first things first is thinking about your big rocks. So your big rocks are the things that you have to get done today. You've probably seen the metaphor where the person tries to put all the little rocks in the jar first and all the fun things, and then they try to put the big rocks in the jar and the big rocks don't fit. But the big rocks are things like your house and your job and paying your mortgage and paying your bills on time and putting gas in the car. You know, those kinds of things are important because we can't function without them. Are they kind of boring? Yeah, but you still have to get them done in order to live your life so that you can get to the small rocks, which are going out with your friends, going to the movies, reading a book, those kind of fun, relaxing things. So habit 3 is putting first things first, and we call it prioritizing your day. So maybe sit down the night before or the morning of and just write down what things you have to do first today. What are your must-dos? We have really enjoyed doing that in class. My kids love checking in and saying, hey, let's check in on our big rocks. We haven't checked in all day. We're like, oh yeah, we need to see how we're doing. And today we didn't meet one of our big rocks, but we kind of talked about how it was okay because we got a lot of other things done that we still needed to get done that weren't necessarily big rocks. So there's kind of some flexibility with it as long as you're not abusing that kind of flexibility. And so the next habit is habit 4. And now we're moving from private victories. So habit 1, 2, and 3 are private victories, and we're slowly moving into public victories where we are kind of involving other people. Begin with the end in mind, first things first, and being proactive doesn't really involve other people. It's more about self-care. So now we're moving to habit 4, which is think win-win. It's really important for you to know that thinking win-win is not about compromise. It's about everybody getting what they need. So we wouldn't want someone to give up something that they really cared about just because it made someone else happy. That goes against being proactive. But thinking win-win is just how everybody gets what they need. So for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. So say I really want to use the blocks. I'm a first grader. I really want to use the blocks, but somebody's at blocks and the blocks are full. So I could, as a teacher, I could say, well, you know, you've had your time and you're done now. That's not thinking win-win. So a way that you can think win-win is, oh, well, what if we split up the blocks so that everybody could play with some of the blocks? That is thinking win-win. We're not really compromising because you can't use all the blocks at once. And I'll try and come up with a better example for that one. It's kind of tricky because you don't want someone to lose out on something, but you also need to get what you need. But that blocks example is kind of good. Like it just, and I'm looking over at where my kids play with their blocks during stations. That's why I keep looking over there. But it's really just about learning how to talk to someone about what you need. So, you know, I really want to play with the blocks too. How can we work this out? And it's teaching kids how to kind of not negotiate, but just talk to each other about things that they need. Like, I want to play with the blocks too. How can we figure this out? Okay, well, let's set a timer. I'll set a timer for 10 minutes so I can play with the blocks for 10 minutes, and then you can set a timer, and that way we'll both have the same amount of time playing with blocks. We use a lot of blocks in here, in case you haven't figured that out. Okay? All right, now habit 5 is by far my favorite habit, and it is also the most difficult habit for not even kids. I think kids are actually pretty good at learning this habit. It's more the adults that you gotta watch out for. So habit 5 is seek first to understand and then to be understood. We live in an age with I'll show you this real quick. We live in an age where we are so quick to react to things on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on any kind of social media, and that is starting to seep into our day-to-day conversations that we have with people. So seek first to understand is helping you to understand, oh, there's something else going on behind this, or I'm really listening to what you're saying, and I'm also watching how you're saying it. So we call it listening with your ears and with your heart. And your eyes. Because if someone walks in and they say, you know, they're sitting like this and they're like, oh, how are you today? I'm fine. Are they really fine? No, they're not really fine. So I'm going to go over and talk to that person and seek first to understand, and maybe they kind of lash out at me, but I understand that they're not doing it towards me. I understand that they are upset about something, and I'm just the person that happens to be here to take care of it. So it's really about slowing down. It's about taking the time to listen to what people are actually saying, and before you respond, before you and I think as humans, we just naturally just like start thinking of a response because it's maybe a survival instinct, whatever. But you have to understand where the person is coming from before you can respond to it. And that's why, like, for example, if I'm really upset about something and I really want to write an email to a parent or to a student or to a coworker, I will write it down either physically, or I will write a draft and not put an email in it, because not put a person in the to part, because if you accidentally send it and you didn't mean to, that's terrible. But just kind of get it out of your system and then go back the next day and say, hey, okay, let's reevaluate the situation. And maybe you found out some information right after you sent that email that makes you regret sending that email. Does that make sense? Answer. Okay. So habit 5 is my favorite habit, and we talk about it a lot in first grade because it's really kind of like empathy, like just making sure you're listening to other people and what they're thinking about and where they're coming from. Okay, and habit 6 is a really fun one, and we like to do this one a lot, which is synergize. So synergize just means that you work as a team. So, I mean, you can use any sports example, but the first year that we taught this, I'm trying to think, I think I used the example of the Golden State Warriors when they were going on their like 74 win streakers, going for the 74 wins in a season. They had to work as a team, and we use that example a lot because there's no way they would have been able to do that if they weren't working together. You know, Steph Curry didn't carry that team. Draymond Green didn't carry that team. They had to work together. Yes, there are people who might be, you know, the superstars, but at the end of the day, if you don't have those other people to help support you, then you're nothing. So the synergize is just about working as a team. It's about making sure that everyone's voice is heard, and that you kind of go out of your way to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, and that they're getting what they need. Okay, and last but not least is another favorite of mine, which is habit 7, and that is sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw. My kids think that this is hilarious. They're like, a saw! And they always pretend to cut their arms like a saw. That's how we kind of do our little cheer, and I'll make another video about kind of the lingo and everything that we use in the classroom. But habit 7 is sharpen the saw. And that is just basically about self-care. So we call it balance is best. So if you're spending all your time at your job and not home with your family, or if you spend all weekend, every weekend on your couch watching Netflix, even though you're physically capable of getting up and doing other things, that is not balancing your life. You need to have some stress from a job. You need to have some relaxation at home. You need to spend some time with your family. You need to spend some time with your friends. And you shouldn't be spending any extreme amount of time with any of those groups. You know, I shouldn't be working 24/7. That's not healthy. I shouldn't be sitting around doing nothing all the time. That is not healthy. That's not helping my brain to grow. I shouldn't be with my family all the time, because I just shouldn't be with my family all the time. I love them, but I shouldn't be with them all the time. And so it's really just about taking care of yourself and making sure that you are doing a variety of things. You know, variety is the spice of life. So sharpening the saw helps you to do that. So that's just a brief overview of the 7 habits of happy kids, or highly effective people, which is what adults call it. There's also one for teenagers. There's probably a bunch more that I just don't know about. We really just focus on teaching it to kids, but really it's applicable to anybody. So if you ever have any questions about it, or if you're a Leader in Me school and you want to collaborate, I met some people on Instagram just talking about Leader in Me, and we've already just started talking and sharing ideas with each other. So if you want to do that, please follow me on Instagram. It is @primary.pickles. And also follow me here on YouTube, like and subscribe. I'll be putting up more Leader in Me content. Let me know down below if there's anything that you want me in particular to talk about. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!